the Lifetime Achievement Award. And when you look over the list of people that have received this award in the past, you see a litany of folks that have shaped careers all around. And as I was looking into the selection of this time and how to introduce the topic, I realized that we do have somebody in the room that would be best adept at coming up and giving the appropriate accolades. So to introduce this year's Lifetime Achievement Award winner, I'd like to introduce David Morledge and have him come up and speak. Thank you, David.
Well, it's my honor and privilege to present Doug Hudson with the Lifetime Achievement Award 2020. Doug and I have known each other over 30 years. Doug, I consider you not only a mentor and colleague, but a very, very close friend. How close, you ask? My youngest son, Chase Hudson Morledge. That's truly his name. So Doug attended Texas Tech, where he played football. He moved here in 1967, and then in 1970, he founded Austin Neurological Clinic, which is where I continue to practice to this day. The group started in just a handful of neurologists, he and Pete Werner, and then it blossomed into neuropsychology, pediatric neurology, adult neurology. We had a huge EEG lab, and he was instrumental in getting the first CAT scanner here in Austin. I remember Doug telling the story. He met with a bunch of physician investors, and he had just gotten back from a conference, and he said, hey, there's this new thing called a CAT scan, and I really think we ought to get on this quickly. And several of them poo-pooed him and actually elected not to get on board with that. But obviously he did that. He was also instrumental in getting fax machines in all the local hospitals. In typical Doug fashion, in 2000, he decided to challenge himself again and became the first board-certified sleep specialist here in Austin, where he started practicing solely sleep at that point, and then began conducting clinical trials. And he has been instrumental in getting many of the medications that we use today to market because of his clinical trials. He was charter member of Texas Neurological Society. He was program chair at TNS for the first winter conference in 1998. And then he served as president in 2000 of our society. Now, he's not all business, as you know. Doug is a prankster and has a joke for every. One quick story before I get him up here. We were interviewing a young fella from Wisconsin, Dr. Pierpont, very conservative, fella, and I'll never forget this. We were at the Headliners Club downtown, and our group at that point was fairly large. There were about 12 folks out to dinner, and the adult beverages had been in ample supply. I would even use the term giddy as neurologists. Don't we tend to use that term sometimes? So anyway, Doug stood up and told his classic Mother Green joke, which is a joke I wouldn't even tell in the locker room, basically. And there was a brief moment of silence, like, uh-oh, maybe we went overboard on that one. And then all of us just literally broke out laughing. And then I turned to Dr. Pierpont and his wife. Nothing. I mean, it wasn't a look of shock or awe. There was just no expression. I'm just going, well, there goes that candidate. He's not going to join us. And so the next day, Doug goes, we had a board meeting. He goes, David, why don't you call Dr. Pierpont? Just explain to him we don't get out very often and apologize. And so I'm reaching down literally to grab the phone, and then my phone rings on my desk, and it's Dr. Pierpont. I go, John, gosh, really sorry about last night. You know, I think we got a little out of hand. And he goes, what are you talking about? My wife and I loved it. I want to join your group. So Doug, you truly deserve this award, and I just want to congratulate you for being the 2020 Lifetime Achievement Award recipient.
Gerald Ford, I guess, and fall down. We did have helmets when I played this last year. Thank you so much for this honor, and thanks. My guests are here, my wife and a couple of sons and daughter-in-law and some long-standing employees that allowed me to continue on with the efforts that we have enjoyed so much over the years. When I was first notified of this award, the photograph, I didn't do a selfie, and they asked for a bio written in the third person, so I asked my wife Shirley to help me with that, and after it was finished, I read it and I said, you know, this kind of looks like an obituary. So I did that too. That's all for this now. So, prior to coming to Austin in '67, I did come to visit a few doctors to find out if there was a need for a neurologist or if they wanted a neurologist. And one of the people I met with was the only neurologist that had ever been here, named Ben Cohen, and he promptly told me that he saw no need for another neurologist. And so, but I wanted to come anyway, so I did, and I joined a group of internists to ensure my referral source. And that was a very, very exciting time in neurology. There are now something like 70 people listed as in this area as neurologists. I don't know if they're all full-time, pediatric, adult, or what, but a lot of people in neurology. Anyway, it was an exciting time, and which is unusual because neurology was always considered, especially diagnosed and treated incurable diseases. And it still is, in a way, when you think about it, the diagnosis and treatment of incurable disease. If we ever find a cure for something, we give it to some other specialty, like herpes simplex encephalitis, for example. And I don't know, it's been interesting when someone asks me, you know, what does a neurologist do? And you give a couple of diseases, and I say, you know, you really don't ever want to see a neurologist. And I remember sometimes on Monday morning, you'd be standing at a patient's chart at the hospital, and the guy had been off, or a gal had been off duty for the weekend and saw some neurologist standing at their patient's door, like, what in the world happened over the weekend? We have a neurologist come here. But anyway, I was just thinking, I think 2 weeks ago, a patient in my office said, how old are you? And I said, well, let me think about it. You can't remember if it was last year or getting ready to be a certain age. That'll happen. And while I was thinking about it, I started thinking about the past and a few things. I remember, for some reason, that I was bipolar. And also, it must have been around lunchtime, too. Chicken. So that was a long time. Thanks for reflection over the past. Anyway, all during the 60s and 90s, all up to the 90s, we always met with the Texas Medical Association. And the attendance was anywhere from 6 to 16, and anything above that was a miracle. And my first honor with this association was when the society was formed. I was a charter member of that. That was 1974. And we continued to meet with the TMA, but we realized that we were conflicting with the American Academy meeting in June, and that's why the attendance was low. So a group of dedicated neurologists decided we should have a winter meeting. So I was asked to be on the board and put together the first winter meeting. And so I spent a year trying to get the speakers. We couldn't afford to bring anybody from out of state, much less out of the country. And we worried about paying for the hotel, so I had to get the drug companies to roll the dice and put up $200 or whatever it was to have a booth. So we got a handful of those, and Bob Phil reminded me the other day that there were 75 people that showed up for the first winter conference. We didn't call it annual yet. We didn't know if it was going to make it or not, but it did. And so 23 years later, I guess my claim to fame is that the format stayed exactly the same with the pediatric and everything else that's been there. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I think. Anyway, we have had some pivotal moments in our society, and one was when the, well, I've got it right here, when we abandoned the syllabus. We used to have, everybody had one of these. It took a train load to bring everybody to get one. And it's hard to believe that the iPad was just introduced in 2010. So things like that really revolutionized things. The other one was the summer meeting that Ed mentioned, and that started in 2004, and it's continued to go. We thought we'd have a winter one, we'll have a summer one too. And then another one was when we were able to afford to bring speakers in from out of the state. So I think, and we started off with our chairman of the departments of the medical schools, and I think that was probably the success of our society because they were so good, but most of them are retired now. And except for one, that's Stan Appel, and I thought he would be here today, but maybe the first meeting he's missed in all these years. And we talked about, why we got practicing so long, and I was talking to Stuart Black last summer, and I told him, I said, I don't know how to build birdhouses, so I'm just going to keep practicing medicine. And he told me that he did build a birdhouse, and for owls in his backyard, but they never came. And but the bees took it over, so the bees have learned how to populate themselves. And I wasn't even going to tell that story until yesterday. The front page of the Austin American Statesman, the UT researchers take on the bee decline. So I'm going to contact him and tell him to check his backyard, or maybe he's got a new technique how to keep the bees in order. So I do want to thank everybody that served in this organization, everybody, all the attendees, and especially the TMA staff, which we could not have been so successful without their help. And speaking of Bob Phil, he was telling me a story about his grandfather who practiced medicine in rural East Texas back in the 20s. And one day he had a knock on the door one night, a little boy, come to the house, my mother's sick. And he said, okay, so they go to the house, and there was no electricity. I had to tell something, David. So they go to the house, and the doctor asked the little boy to hold the lantern up while he delivered the baby. And so he did, and he took the baby out and kind of spanked the baby on the bottom. And the doctor said, well, Sonny, what do you think about your new little brother? He started to cry. The little baby did. He said, I think you should spank him again. He should have never crawled up here in the first place. So, thank you very much for this honor.
Business. One is we have to elect a slate of new officers. So you can see the list that you have in front of you, president on down.